Looking to assemble the WEN MB500, and this is used for moving around some big tools. So, first step we're going to start with is getting the fixed wheels in place on your brackets, and fairly simple here. The trickiest part is probably that spacer you see. It's a little bit of a tight fit. So what I ended up doing is I took a bolt from the reverse side, and I used that to hold the spacer, and then I went ahead and put the wheel in and push the bolt in just a little bit further to hold that in place as well. And again, it's a little bit of a tight fit here on this one, but once that's in place, and I find it just easier to line it up from that side, then I take the bolt from the correct side and push it on through, and that pops out the bolt I was using on the other side. And then I'm ready to go ahead and put on the nut. Now, I wouldn't put this on too snug because there's a good chance you're going to have to remove that lock nut later on during the rail assembly. So snug it up a little bit, but be ready to take it off a little bit later on. All right, step two, we're going to look at installing the rubber feet. This one's fairly simple. One mistake I noticed in the instructions, they said for a 17mm wrench. Take a look at that there. There's a bit of a gap there. So I switched to a 5/8, and that seemed to work out exact. So 5/8 wrench there. They talked about measuring the depth of this rubber foot here to match how far down the wheel was. I'm not certain you'd have to do it at this step, but I went ahead and tried to anyway. So I screwed this in. I had measured that mine was 1/2 inch down. I looked to mention that, and I matched it up, and I got it all set. And then I went ahead and put the big nut on there. Now again, I think you can get that height fairly easily adjusted after everything's assembled and you've got it on the ground. I still had to make some adjustments myself even after measuring that and getting that at 1/2 inch. So snug it up and you're set to go with this step. All right, for step three, we are looking at the swivel plates. These are a pretty easy installation. All you're doing is adding that orange little swivel plate onto your bracket. So the key is remember that you're going to be using the bottom hole. You're going to need a bolt and just a lock nut here on this one. No spacers at all. So again, bottom hole there. Put it on in. The bolt needs to come from the outside. So I kind of went from the outside of the corner, slide it in, line it up. And after a little bit of finagling, it goes right on in. Put the nut on there. Notice the plate only goes up. You're noticing as you wiggle it around, it didn't go down. Put your lock nut on, and we'll tighten it on with that 10mm wrench. And we're all set here with the swivel plate. Another fairly easy step coming up, step four, it is the caster wheels. You're just going to go over to those swivel plates. You're going to grab your caster wheel, and really it's the wheel. You got a lock washer and the nut. All right, and all you need to do, slide that into the hole on the swivel plate, put the lock washer on next, and then you're going to go ahead and put on the nut. And again, we're going to use that 5/8 wrench again, as that is the correct size for this instead of the 17 that was in the directions. All right, tighten that on and you're all good to go. Next, we're going to go right above that and we're going to put on the foot levers. Again, we're going to make a little bit of an adjustment here. They had mentioned 13mm wrenches. I found that the half worked out really good. This one you need the long bolt, you need the lock washer, you need the nut, and you need 2 spacers. These spacers are considerably easier to get in than the first spacer. There's a little bit of play in this. So we're going to go from the outside, put that bolt in. Then you're going to go ahead, get that first spacer on there, slide it through there. And again, it's not too snug, so you got plenty of room. Slide that through, goes through both holes in the foot lever. Then you get that second spacer in, and again, a little bit of room there so you can get that in. And then you're all the way through. Get the lock washer on there and the nut. And again, 1/2 inch wrenches and tighten it on down. And you're all set. Now, once tightened down, I just kind of wanted to test it out here, you'll see. So push that foot lever down, you can see, raises it up. When you let go of it, it doesn't actually go down until you give it a little push, but don't worry, your tool will have enough weight that it'll drop it. Now we're onto the rails in step 6, and this is really kind of the ending here. So as we take a look at the rails, they give you a ton of bolts and nuts. And the first thing you want you to do is measure your tool base. So I measured 23 inches on the one direction for me, and they said to add an inch, so I went ahead and made it 24 inches. And really, there's a big rail and then a narrower one that fits inside it. Put the narrow one inside, and I went ahead and added that bolt and nut, but I did also have some lock washers. That wasn't included, but I decided I would add those with the vibrating of the tool. I thought that might be helpful. And then I decided I wanted to add a bolt to at least 2 connections on each of the outside spots, and I thought that would be just a little more secure. And there's plenty of bolts and nuts to do that. So again, 10 millimeter wrenches. Go ahead, snug those up, and you're going to go around and add those in for really all of your connections there, where they connect together and where they're going to connect into the corner pieces. You'll be using the same hardware. So a couple helpful hints on the rails that I found. The first issue I came up with is I was putting it in the corner, and when I wanted to put the big one in, it just didn't want to go down all the way. So I had a rubber mallet, tapped it in. If you had a wood block and a metal hammer, you could tap it in that way too. So that went in fairly easily then. Another thing to save some time, if you've already got one rail measured out, you're going to have to make a matching side for the parallel side on the opposite. So go ahead, match it up, and put the bolt in, and get set. And then earlier in the video, I mentioned a little bit of an issue with the wheel. Well, now I've already got a bolt in my way and a nut. So luckily the bolt is plenty long enough. So I just took the nut off, slid the rail in there, and put it on there. I guess in some cases, if you had a really long base, you maybe wouldn't have a need to remove that. But I felt like if we could, it made it a little more secure. All right. Well, that was kind of it for assembly. Now we take a look at the finished product. And we've got it all set to go. And it looks pretty good. And I used every possible bolt I could. So next step was to get the bandsaw on there. That took me a little bit, but once it was on, you can see, push those foot levers down. You know, my concrete's not all that smooth, but it rolls fairly easily on there. Swivel it around. And then once I want to re-lock it into place, just lift it up. And it sat on the ground pretty nice there. And you can see had a little bit of a wiggle, so I did end up shimming the one corner. But that was it, and we were all good to go. Thanks for watching. I hope this helps you with your assembly of this product.